What if I told you the reason you keep dreaming big yet remain stuck in the same cycles isn't laziness? You wake up full of ideas, imagining new projects, healthier routines, or bold career moves, and for a moment you believe this time will be different. But when it's time to act, something invisible pulls you back, and once again you end the day frustrated with yourself. Society has an easy label for this: laziness. Maybe you've called yourself that countless times. But Carl Jung would tell you laziness is not a flaw of character, nor is it about being tired. It is a mask, a word we slap on something much deeper. Beneath it lies a hidden struggle, an inner resistance that Jung named the shadow. The shadow is not evil, but it is cunning. It holds the fears, doubts, and painful memories we prefer to avoid. Here's the paradox: ambition feeds the shadow. The bigger your vision, the stronger the resistance that rises to block it. Why? Because the shadow's job is to keep you safe, small, and comfortable. Every time you dare to dream beyond the life you know, the shadow whispers that it's dangerous, that it's easier to stay where you are. Suddenly you feel tired for no reason, distracted by meaningless tasks, convinced you need more rest, more research, more preparation. Your brain becomes an expert at creating clever excuses, all designed to delay the very thing you said mattered most. This isn't weakness, it's a psychological defense system at work. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." How many times have you told yourself, "That's just who I am," or "I always mess things up"? Those are not truths. They are scripts written by the unconscious. And as long as you never challenge them, you mistake old patterns for destiny. Think about the cycle. You get inspired, you plan, you tell yourself the future will finally be different. At first, there's energy and excitement. You tell friends, you make lists, you feel unstoppable. Then the days pass and doubt creeps in. Distractions multiply. You bargain with yourself. After this week, after this class, after I feel more ready. Weeks turn into months, the fire dies out, and you call yourself a failure. Then you look for a new source of hype, and the cycle repeats again. Friedrich Nietzsche once observed, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Yet if your why is buried under fear, your how becomes impossible. The shadow convinces you that the risk is too high, that safety lies in postponement. And with every postponed dream, the shadow grows stronger. Most people assume the solution is motivation. They binge productivity videos, chase adrenaline rushes, or surround themselves with slogans like, "No excuses." But motivation without self-awareness only feeds the fire of the shadow. The more you hype yourself up without addressing the real resistance, the deeper your disappointment when it all collapses again. The shadow thrives on that disappointment. Every time you give up, it whispers, "See, I told you it would never work." This is why change feels so heavy. You are not only fighting a habit, you are fighting the part of your mind that believes its role is to protect you from pain, failure, and judgment. But the shadow does not distinguish between real danger and imagined risk. It fights every attempt to grow, even if the cost is your happiness. Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once wrote, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom." That dizziness is what you feel when you stand on the edge of transformation. Your shadow interprets freedom as threat, so it distracts you with procrastination, fatigue, or endless preparation. And every time you shrink back, it wins a little more ground. So ask yourself honestly, what are you truly afraid of? Is it failure, or is it the weight of success and all the change it brings? Is it rejection, or is it the pressure of standing out once people notice you? The shadow isn't trying to ruin you, it's trying to shield you. But in protecting you from imagined pain, it keeps you from real growth. Jung believed that confronting the shadow was the only path to genuine transformation. Not by suppressing it, not by denying it, but by naming it, facing it, and listening to what it fears. He taught that self-awareness, even when painful, is the key to freedom. Because once the unconscious is brought into the light, It can no longer control you from the dark. The next time you catch yourself delaying, shrinking, or labeling yourself lazy, pause. Ask what the shadow is really afraid of. Is it being laughed at, being left behind, being expected to keep proving yourself? The answer will not always be rational, but it will reveal the chains you've carried for years. And once you see those chains, you are no longer powerless. You realize that what felt like fate was only habit, and habits can be changed. You understand that what felt like laziness was actually fear, and fear can be faced. And you discover that what felt like weakness was simply your shadow, doing its job a little too well. So remember this: the battle is not against laziness, but against unconscious patterns. The moment you name your shadow, the moment you bring it into the light, you weaken its hold. And in that act of radical honesty, you take the first real step toward freedom. Most people blame themselves when they fail to change. They call it laziness, lack of discipline, or even bad luck. But Carl Jung would tell you the real reason is deeper. It is your shadow running the show behind the scenes. The shadow is made of unconscious memories, survival strategies, and hidden fears that were formed long before you had words to name them. It is not weakness, but a defense mechanism built to keep you safe. The problem is that it does not know the difference between true danger and imagined risk. This is why every time you try to change, resistance rises like a wall. Think about the last time you set a goal, perhaps to get healthy, to start a business, or to finally learn a new skill. At first you felt clear and determined, but almost immediately your mind created distractions. Suddenly cleaning the house, scrolling your phone, or planning instead of acting felt urgent. This was not random procrastination. It was your shadow defending its territory. Jung noticed this in countless patients who came to him full of ambition. Underneath their drive was fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, and sometimes even fear of success itself. So they sabotaged themselves again and again, calling it fate, when in reality it was the shadow keeping them small. Here's the paradox. Every stuck habit gives you something in return. Staying in bed spares you from the world's demands. Not starting the project protects you from the risk of failure. Not asking for what you want saves you from rejection. Your shadow always offers the illusion of safety, but tomorrow never comes. Each time you listen to the voice that says, "Not yet," you reinforce the very pattern you long to break. And with every delay, the shadow grows stronger. Jung believed the only way forward is radical honesty. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That means you must be willing to look directly at what your resistance is trying to protect you from. Try this simple practice. Sit quietly and imagine speaking to the part of you that always delays action. Ask, "What are you afraid will happen if I succeed?" The answer may surprise you. It may reveal old wounds, moments when you were mocked, criticized, or abandoned for standing out. It may confess a fear of responsibility, of being seen, of losing the people who only love the old version of you. These fears are not signs of weakness. They are echoes of past pain dressed up as fatigue, procrastination, or self-doubt. But once you bring them into the light, they lose their power to control you from the dark. Most people try to bully themselves into change. They use guilt, slogans, and self-criticism as weapons. But Jung taught that you cannot hate yourself into transformation. He believed in acceptance, not of failure as permanent, but of your own mind's attempt to protect you, even when misguided. When you stop waging war against yourself, energy is released. Instead of wasting strength on shame, you can use it to take a new step forward. It does not have to be a giant leap. In fact, Jung believed that real change begins with the smallest, most honest action. Send the email, take the walk, speak your truth to one person. Then pay attention to how your shadow reacts. Does it resist? Does it bargain? Does it grow louder with excuses? Do not fight it, just notice it. because with every act of noticing, its grip weakens. Philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The shadow is part of your mind. It is not your enemy, but it is not your master either. When you see it clearly, you can finally choose how to act instead of being ruled by old patterns. So remember this. You do not need to eliminate the shadow, nor could you if you tried. You only need to face it, to listen honestly, and to act anyway. And each time you do, you reclaim another piece of your life from the grip of unconscious fear. The shadow does not vanish in a single moment of courage. It loosens step by step, choice by choice, truth by truth. And over time, you realize that what once felt like fate was never destiny at all. It was only the echo of a story you were finally brave enough to rewrite. By now you understand that resistance is not laziness but the voice of the shadow. Awareness is the first step, but insight without movement changes nothing. Jung saw this in many of his patients. They understood their patterns, but they never translated awareness into transformation. He knew that knowledge must become action, or it dissolves into frustration. Carl Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Your shadow is built on what has happened. Old wounds, past fears, and survival habits. But your future depends on what you choose now. The bridge between awareness and change is built with small, deliberate steps. Most people fail because they try to change everything at once. They set massive goals, overhaul routines, and demand instant transformation. The shadow thrives on this because the moment you stumble, it whispers, "See, you failed again." Perfection becomes another form of sabotage. Instead, begin small. One action each day, so small the shadow cannot argue with it. Write a single paragraph. Walk for 5 minutes. Speak one honest sentence. The power lies not in the size of the step, but in breaking the spell of inaction. Nietzsche once said, "Little by little, one travels far." Momentum is born from consistency, not intensity. Each honest act weakens the grip of the unconscious and strengthens the voice of your conscious choice. Track these actions, not to chase perfection, but to stay honest. Each evening, ask yourself, did I act today? What resistance appeared? How did the shadow try to distract me? Write it down even briefly. What is measured is revealed, and what is revealed can be transformed. Do not walk this path alone. Jung believed that true change happens in relationship, not in isolation. When you share your struggle honestly, the shadow loses its power. What once felt like shame becomes connection. Find one person you trust or a community where truth is valued, and speak your goals aloud. In that act, fear weakens and accountability grows. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies here. Do not waste time waiting to feel ready. Be the person who takes the smallest step today, even while afraid. Expect setbacks. Your shadow will not vanish quietly. It will return with excuses, fatigue, and guilt. But the difference between those who change and those who quit is simple. Those who change expect resistance and choose to continue anyway. When you fall, begin again without shame. Every return is an act of strength, not failure. Over time, something shifts. The old patterns lose their weight. The voice that once stopped you grows quieter. Your confidence no longer comes from hype, but from proof, the daily evidence that you can act despite fear. This is how awareness becomes transformation. Not by erasing the shadow, but by outgrowing it. Not by waiting for perfect conditions, but by building resilience one step at a time. And as the days accumulate, you realize that the life you longed for is not built in grand gestures, but in quiet, consistent acts of courage. So remember this. Awareness without action is illusion. Action without awareness is chaos. But when awareness and action meet, transformation begins. And every small step you take toward your truth is a declaration. My shadow will no longer define me. No matter how much progress you make, there will be days when your shadow returns. It will come disguised as fatigue, distraction, or the old voices of doubt. And there will also be resistance from the world outside, criticism, misunderstanding, and judgment from those who do not understand your path. Carl Jung wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." So often, the criticism we hear from others is not about us at all, but about their own unfulfilled dreams and fears. They project their disappointments onto you, and if you are not careful, you carry them as if they were your own. The truth is, everyone projects. Friends, family, colleagues, they see your choices through the lens of their own insecurities. When you pursue change, some will admire you, but others will resist because your growth threatens their comfort. What looks like advice is often disguised fear. What feels like concern can be envy in softer clothing. As Nietzsche once said, "And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music." Your rhythm will confuse those who cannot hear it, but their misunderstanding does not make your song less real. This is where self-respect becomes essential. You cannot live for approval and growth at the same time. Every time you shrink to satisfy someone else's opinion, you abandon yourself. And every time you honor your truth, even when it offends or confuses others, you grow stronger at your core. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires the courage to withstand disapproval. You will be misunderstood. You will be judged. But these moments are not failures. They are proof that you are no longer living by someone else's script. Criticism is inevitable. What matters is how you hold yourself when it arrives. If you crumble at every harsh word, the shadow grows stronger. But if you pause, breathe, and remind yourself, "This is about them, not me," the shadow loosens its grip. Most criticism reveals more about the critic than about the one criticized. Remember this simple truth: rejection is redirection. Each time someone dismisses you for being authentic, they are showing you who cannot walk with you. And that clarity is a gift, because your energy is too valuable to be wasted on those who only accept you when you wear a mask. Philosopher Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Bravery is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move despite it. Freedom is not being liked by everyone, but respecting yourself enough to choose your own path. Self-respect is built in moments of choice. When you set a boundary and hold it, even when guilt whispers. When you say no to what drains you, even when others are offended. When you return to your small daily actions, even after failure. Each act of alignment reinforces your worth. There will be setbacks. Some days the shadow will win. You will procrastinate, avoid, or fall back into old patterns. But what defines you is not the slip, but the return. Every time you start again, you tell the shadow, "You do not decide who I am." Over time, this persistence builds an inner strength that no external opinion can shake. Your confidence stops relying on applause and begins to rest in evidence. Proof that you can withstand resistance, both internal and external. And when others see you unshaken, something remarkable happens. Their criticism loses power, and your quiet determination speaks louder than any defense ever could. So hold this truth close. The world may not always understand you. Your shadow may not always leave you in peace. But if you choose self-respect in the face of resistance, you will always find strength. Because respect rooted within cannot be taken away by anything outside. The shadow never disappears. It will always walk beside you, whispering doubts, offering excuses, tempting you to retreat to comfort. But freedom does not come from defeating it once and for all. Freedom comes from learning how to live with it without letting it rule you. Carl Jung wrote, "I would rather be whole than good." Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means accepting all of yourself. The parts that shine and the parts that stumble, the ambition that pulls you forward and the fear that holds you back. When you embrace both, you stop fighting yourself and begin living as one. The shadow is not your enemy. It is a reminder of every wound you've carried, every lesson you've learned, every part of you that still longs for healing. To deny it is to deny your own humanity. To acknowledge it is to reclaim your power. Most people believe freedom means never feeling fear again. But true freedom is acting even when fear walks with you. It is not silence of doubt, but the refusal to let doubt decide your fate. It is not the absence of resistance, but the courage to keep moving despite it. Nietzsche once said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." The chaos is part of the process. The shadow is part of the fuel. Without it, there would be no friction, no tension, no growth. Your strength is not proven by the absence of struggle, but by the way you rise within it. Living whole means choosing authenticity over performance. It means you no longer waste energy pretending to be flawless for others. It means you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of approval. It means you accept the messy, imperfect reality of who you are and still move forward with dignity. Jung believed that individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, requires courage, patience, and honesty. You cannot outrun the shadow, but you can bring it into the light. Every time you name your fear, every time you act despite resistance, every time you forgive yourself and return again, you weaken its hold. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." The same is true of the shadow. It is not the shadow itself that destroys us, but the power we give it when we believe its voice unchallenged. So what does it mean to live free with the shadow? It means recognizing that setbacks are not the end, but part of the rhythm. It means honoring your daily actions, however small, as proof of your resilience. It means choosing people who support your truth rather than those who prefer your mask. And it means carrying yourself with self-respect, even when the world misunderstands. You do not need to silence the shadow to create. You do not need to erase fear to love. You do not need to be flawless to live fully. You need only to accept yourself as you are, to act in alignment with your truth, and to return again and again to the path you've chosen. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That privilege is not given to the strongest or the luckiest. It is given to those who dare to see themselves completely, light and shadow, ambition and fear, failure and triumph, and still choose to walk forward. So let this be your reminder. You are not broken because you feel resistance. You are not weak because you hear the shadow's voice. You are human, and your humanity, embraced fully, is where your deepest power lives. The shadow may walk beside you, but it does not define you. Your choices do. And every choice to honor your truth, no matter how small, is an act of freedom. Live with that freedom. Live with that wholeness. And you will discover that the life you long for has been waiting, not beyond the shadow, but within your willingness to walk with it.